All right, everyone, and welcome to Q&A with Joe McNamee. Okay, so to ask your questions, there is a little hand icon with an arrow, and you would press that, and that lets me know that you have your hand raised, and then I'll let you know that I'm unmuting you. And then you can just, if you have a microphone, ask your question to Joe, or there's a question box that you can just write them in there. But we'd really recommend that you use your microphone in case Joe has a question for your question, so we don't have to wait for you to type it in and everything because it can take a while. So let's not waste any more time. Here's Joe.
Okay, thanks, Courtney. Well, we just finished some lunch. My wife talked us into crystals, so my energy level's way down from that. You know, if you don't know what a crystal burger is, that's the ones that you can eat in like 4 bites, or if you're Courtney, you can eat it in 1.5 bites. But anyway, welcome to the Q&A. So the first thing I'd like to do is let's go ahead, before I jump into the question I asked everyone else out there online, let's go ahead and get some questions answered if anyone has any questions right now. I'm really looking to help you with an issue you're having. Maybe there's a stumbling block, something in your way, or something you're not quite sure about. So let's go ahead and get those out of the way first. So Courtney, are there any questions right now?
Nope, I don't have any questions right now. So if you have one, just type it in or press the hand. Okay, Kelly, I see you have a question. So you're unmuted, and you're going to need to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hey, Kelly, this is Joe. I can hear you.
Hey, Joe, how are you?
I'm good.
I had a quick question. Well, I mean, I don't know how quick it is, but it was in terms of the in calling a rental, a person who has their house for rent, if they actually have it, if it's occupied with tenants at the moment, how are you able to gain access, you know, to the property? Let's say that they are not interested in buying it or whatever. How do you, how are you able to get in, or what is it that you say to the seller, or I guess just how do you do that if it's occupied already, or do you just let that house go altogether?
No, we don't ever let anything go. We always make a stab at everything, and then we follow up. So remember, the 2nd through the 7th contact is where 80% of your deals lie. Okay, so let's just kind of back up just a little bit. So let me verify what you just said to me. You're referring to a property that the seller is a landlord, has a tenant in the property, and the tenant probably does not want to buy or thinks they can't buy because they don't understand any possible way of buying yet. And you want to see the property without the seller having a problem with the tenant possibly wanting to move out, being you're buying it. Am I on track?
That is, I guess even more specifically, if I wanted to show it to others,
okay,
in addition to myself, other buyers.
Okay, all right. So we're going to just make the assumption that the tenant is not able to buy or does not want to buy, and they're still renting in that property. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So now we have an agreement with the seller. I'm gonna take us to that point, because if we're going to show this house to someone else, we need to have a contract in place with the seller already. So the seller is aware that we're wanting to buy this, and we're trying to find out what the market has to say about the house before we jump in and buy it. We just want to make sure that it's a property that we're not going to get stuck with. So
okay, that's good.
We have an agreement.
Your wording right there, that solves the problem.
Well, it solves most of it, but there's some that you may not realize that. So let's go just a little bit deeper. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. So here's the next. So here's the next issue that can pop up, and it happened to me one time. And a matter of fact, it was one of my family members. It was my oldest son, and it was his girlfriend. I was just telling this story just a few weeks ago to somebody, but anyway. When you're showing that property to others, you want to make sure that the tenant is kind of under control, because obviously, let's say the tenant loves the house, they've been renting there for a while and they want to stay there. Well, what's the easiest way for them to stay there? To sabotage you showing the property. So that's something that doesn't always happen, and of course most people will do the right thing, but there's that 20% of the time somebody's going to do something vindictive or something wrong. And so you have to be aware of this. The tenant needs to be controlled to allow you to show the house, to show the property, without kind of interfering with the possible sale of that property. So let me just tell you what happened, and it's a little bit of a kind of a weird thing to talk about, but it's a part of life, and it was a fact that occurred. And so this was back around 2004. I happened to be using a realtor to show a lot of my properties at that time. And so this was a house that we bought. It was built on stilts, and it was not in a wet area. It was a very high and dry piece of land that this property was built on. It was about 2,300 square feet. We closed in the entire downstairs below, of that house, and doubled the square footage of the house by another 2,300. So now there's 4,600 square feet. Well, while we were working on it, one of the things that I like to do is I like to have a night watchman, someone living in the property or living on the property while I'm working on something else on that property, so that the tools and the material and all that stuff's kind of under protection by that, so to speak, night watchman. So I allowed my son to live there, and his girlfriend lived there with him. Well, she really liked living there way more than I wanted her living there. And so she would leave dirty clothes, undergarments, laying all over this house. I mean, in the kitchen, in the bedroom, in the living room, just all different places constantly when this property was being shown. Also, every day the trash from the house, or not every day, but every week, the trash from the house was in a bag and always sitting in the kitchen sink instead of in the trash can. So
Wow.
it was just it wasn't horrible. This is not a horrendous story, but it didn't help the sale of the house. It kind of hurt it just a little bit. So you can deal with things like that. So one of the things that I like to do is get the seller, who's the landlord, to create a small document so that the tenant that's in there has signed this, agreeing to help sell this house, not to hamper it. We want them to keep the house in a good cleanly state, to make it easy for us to be able to see rooms, not to do anything that's going to be kind of viewed negatively. If there's any animals, they need to be taken care of and tied up or put wherever, so that we know where they're at, so that they don't get let out by accident and all that kind of stuff. But it's just a one sheet of paper that has those different requests on it, and then get the tenant to sign it. Now, will every tenant sign it? Pretty much so. Not, I won't say 100%, but most of them do whenever we go down that road. So that's how we deal with that. And then aside from that, there's many times where I've sold my properties based on the terms, where the individuals, matter of fact, I'm going to go over one today that this actually happened to. The people bought the house without seeing the inside of the house. And that happens a lot in my world. And if you understand how to structure, how to build your library, how to create everything in place that's conducive to selling that property, even if they're not able to see the inside of it, then a lot of those problems go away anyhow. Okay?
Yeah, thanks a lot.
You're welcome. All right, Courtney, next question.
Okay, Marilyn, I see you have your hand raised. So, go ahead, Marilyn.
Hi, Joe and Courtney. How you guys doing?
Hey, we're doing good. How about you?
Good, good. I'm so glad I was able to make it today. I have several questions. Starting off, I was wondering, how do you handle a seller? We've been able to work with a couple sellers, have not been able to get them to the closing process or find an agreement between the buyers that we have and them. But this last seller, which we thought was a great deal, they really asked a lot of questions, and they will not back down, and they want to know everything. How do we make our money? How do we make sure that their mortgage is being paid? How do you tell them what you're doing without giving them all the details? I mean, I just kind of felt like I didn't do a good job because I just laid it all on them.
Okay, so one of the things when they start questioning a lot about how the business is done, you'll start to feel the difference between just concerned about their property and I want to know how you're doing this so that I can just go ahead and do it myself instead of having you do it. Okay, so when you start feeling like it's turning that direction to where they're asking too many questions, then it's where you just stop. You have to be kind of bold with this now. You just stop, look them square in the eye and say, listen, I've spent a lot of money, time, and effort learning how to do this business, and I've built my business, and you can, talk about whatever is true in your world. But so if you're interested in learning how to do this business, I can connect you with the person that I have learned from, and I've spent a lot of time and effort and money learning this. So if that's what you're interested in doing, let me know right now. And a lot of times, all of a sudden, they realize, oops, I've just been caught at what I'm attempting to do. Maybe I'll stop. And typically, the ones who still are very aggressive about it, they'll say, oh, no, I was just kind of just a little bit curious, and you can understand this is my property, and I'm just a little bit apprehensive. And then they go back into it again, and they start asking more of the questions. That's when you have to just come right straight to the point again and say, listen, those are things about my business. Those are personal things about the way my business operates. What I'm interested in doing for you is getting this burden off your back. I'm trying to get this payment off of you. I'm trying to get you everything that you said you needed out of this house. I'm trying to accomplish that. And this is my business. This is what I do. Again, if you're interested in learning how to do that, then what I'm asking you to do is say it so that I can connect you with a person who will teach you how. But this is my business, and this is my intellectual knowledge. So, or intellectual property. Okay?
Okay, and then another question I have is, when the client doesn't have money to put down, and we tell them that we work with any situation, how do you tell them they do need money to put down in order for us to work with them and them being part of the program?
Okay, so when I'm marketing to buyers, I never tell them that I work with any situation. So when I'm working with sellers, the statement is, I buy houses, any price range, any condition. When I'm working with my buyers in this economy, the advertising message is my terms. It's lease purchase, owner financing, no bank qualifying, no credit check. But none of that says that I'm not requiring a down payment. None of that says that I'm not requiring a monthly payment. So I don't know why you're thinking that you should let them in with no down payment. If you do that, you're going to an ugly seminar. You're going to get burned pretty quick on that one.
Well, no, I never say that we'll let them in with no down payment. We'll just say we work with what you have. But when they come back and say, I know that you have mentioned we need you to put skin in the game because that's how I know
I'm not
that
telling them that I'm working
responsible in making the payment.
I'm telling them.
Is that what I would need to tell them since we're not verifying the credit or the
You're not telling.
employment?
No, wait a minute.
That's the only guarantee that we have. The money that they put down, that would be the reply to that?
Okay, hold on a minute. You're not telling anybody that you'll work with what they have. I mean, you would never say those kind of words. Okay, well, I got $10. So that you're not saying that to them. You're finding out what they have to work with, and then you're putting them on your list to let them know when you have properties available. That doesn't mean that you're working with what they have. You want to know what they have to work with. Okay? But you're not telling them that you're putting anybody who tells me what they have to work with, I'm going to put you in a house any way, shape, or form. That's just not the case. Okay? So you're kind of setting yourself up for a person that's going to give you very little to no skin in the game to move into one of your properties. Now, the only thing, when I use that word skin, I didn't say money, I said skin. So you could have a fixer-upper that has $25,000 worth of repairs that needs to be done, and you're going to let them in for let's just, I'm making up a number, 1,500 down and 600 a month, and they're going to fix the house. Now, you can require certain things to be done before they get to move in, and so now we've built some skin in the game. But as far as people with almost nothing down, you very, very seldom would ever let them go into a house that doesn't need a lot of work. So kind of get away from that. That's gonna bite you right there really hard if you're not careful with that one. Okay? Does that help adjust your focus on that? Hello?
Marilyn, just unmute yourself. Okay.
I'm sorry, it got muted. Yes, okay. If you don't mind, let me ask you one more question. So,
Sure.
Since we're not checking their credit,
Mm-hmm.
how do you know that, I'm just kind of concerned if, for the background, how do you know you're not getting like a criminal in the house? I mean, do you just kind of
So
feel
if you
them
do
out?
so if you do a credit check, is that going to let you know if they're a criminal or not?
Or no, like a background check, because now,
Okay.
all these realtor companies do background checks and credit checks. So how do you know the information that they're giving you is correct, that they're not lying about their income or where they work?
Okay. So the first thing is that now you want to try to become the policeman of the world. So, there's people who have been wrongly accused of stuff. Are you going to draw a conclusion based on that? If you are, then you could get yourself sued for that situation right there. So in all the years, in all the decades that I've been doing this, I've never had one issue with any of that right there. And I am sure that out of all the buyers that I put in all the properties, that there's probably some of them who have done something wrong. But I don't know for a fact they have. I wasn't there. I'm not a witness to that. So are they accused properly, or were they wrongfully accused? How far into this do you want to go? Do you think Bank of America looks to see if you have any kind of a criminal record? The answer is no. I've bought for many years and they've never even asked me any of that or looked into it to even try to figure that one out. I bought houses that are seller financed. I bought houses that are conventional loans. I bought houses that are, some sort of a lease option type deal. No one has ever asked me that, and I've never asked anyone that. I'm interested in, can they make the payments? Do they have enough skin in the game to make me comfortable? And if I have to remove them from the property, can I say cha-ching? And when the answer is yes to all that, then I'm good to go. But I'm not trying to, root out all evil in the world and figure out who did what. This guy, was put in prison for robbing a 7-Eleven 40 years ago, and I'm not into all that. That would be a huge waste of my time. There's a police force, and that's what they're for. If someone is doing something wrong, the police are supposed to be brought into that, not my investment company. Okay?
Got it. Great. Thank you for that. I'll let others ask questions. I have some more questions.
Well, wait. Let's just take that. Let's just take that one step further.
Okay.
So we go to the Bass Pro Shop, and we go all the way downstairs, and they've got a counter there where you can buy guns. So are they the ones approving you to buy the gun or not? No, they're just filling out a form that they're required to fill out, and then that's sent off for a background investigation, not by Bass Pro Shop, but by a state or a federal organization that's checking that. Bass Pro Shop has nothing to do with that. They're just filling out that form to send it in. They're not the ones making that decision. Okay?
Well, my concern was mostly like if they don't pay and we have to get them out of the house.
Okay.
Then
all right.
causes
So
problem
so that's about having plenty of skin in the game up front. So let's just say that you got a $30,000 down payment. They moved in the house. 3 months later, they didn't make their payment. So you give them a warning shot saying, look, if you don't pay, you don't stay. The next month, they still haven't paid. So you start the process to evict them. Are you way ahead of the game?
Yes.
Okay, so did it hurt you?
No, but if they start threatening back, that was my concern,
Okay, so that's what the police force is for.
Got it.
Okay, that can happen with anyone.
That's right.
Okay. There is an argument on one side of this that you could look at it from this perspective. Someone who's done something wrong and they've done the crime, they've done the time for it, they've been punished for it. There's a lot of people that have decided, you know what, I'm going to walk on eggshells because I don't ever want to go down that road again. So there are many people that have never done anything wrong, and the first time it could be you, and so, but they're not so aware of what can happen to them as the person who did one thing wrong and got slapped for it and decided, you know what, I don't want to go down that road again. Okay?
Right.
All right. Next question.
Should I continue or wait for others and then I'll come back to
go ahead. We got you on now.
Okay. I've come across some people that say, okay, so if I'm making you the payment, how do I know that the mortgage is actually being paid? Because I've been in other properties before that I've paid the payment, and then all of a sudden I get a notice that the house is foreclosure. Is there anything we can give the buyer as proof that the mortgage on the property is being paid so they feel a little bit more secure in the money that they're providing us?
Yep. So if they're asking for that, which most of the people don't, but every now and then they do because they've been burned by someone who didn't know what they were doing. So if they ask for that, then what you do is you create an account for them to log in to be able to view what's happening with that account. So if you have a monthly payment going on a mortgage, you can set it up where they have access to actually see that those payments are being made on that mortgage every month. They can't manipulate it or anything, but they can actually go in and get, access rights to that, or they can come by your office every month and see it, or they can see an updated status. If you don't want to give them access, you can print out an updated status every month, or you can set it up where they can call in just to hear that payment was made this month. Okay?
Got it.
Okay.
Got it. And if I come across some investors that have actually called me and said, if you have any properties, just let me know. And I've had come across 4 or 5 properties that I see the little signs, of investment property. How do you refer them to the investors and make a profit? How does that exchange work?
Okay, so you wouldn't be just referring them. You would put a contract on the property and then assign it to the investor if it's one that you don't want to stay in.
Okay.
Okay, that's your cleanest way of doing that.
Okay. All right.
Now
Thank you so much.
Now you can become a bird dog for those investors, but you're going to get peanuts compared to what you should be getting out of it.
Okay. So just treat them all the same route.
Well, they're buyer investors, so there's a third script. So there's a script for buyers, there's a script for sellers, and there's a script for buyer investors. So you treat them the way that they've answered the questions on your buyer investor script.
Got it.
Okay?
Okay. Understood. Oh, one last one. Oh, I got you. I'm sorry. I thought I was done. I know that you mentioned that on line 2 or 3 of the HUD is where it says the lease purpose, or it talks about the subject to.
That's right. Yes, taking over existing debt subject to.
Right. Now, with this new closing disclosure that's come out, I'm having a hard time finding that. Have you been able to see that on the new closing disclosure at all? Do you know where that's located?
No, I don't. I don't know that. I'll have to pull that up and look for that for you, and then I'll get back with you on that. Okay?
So I'm wondering, could we just still go back and use the HUD, or
This is not on a disclosure statement. This is on your HUD-1, your actual settlement statement that your attorney's office or your title agent is using to close the deal.
Right.
Okay.
So,
but whether there's a block there for this or not, anything that you can make an agreement with someone else on, as long as it's ethical, moral, legal, proper, then it can be put into the closing. The closing can be created from that. The reason of me saying line 203 is there is so that people realize that this has been around for a very long time. Just because and when I say they, 90% of the real estate attorneys I talk to have never even heard of it before, and it's gone across their desk for 40 years straight and they'd never seen it before. So the bottom line is that's why I point out that it's on line 203. That line doesn't have to be there for them still to create that closing as a subject to purchase or a subject to sale. Okay? It doesn't have to be pre-printed on that form. It just happens to be there because it's been available and possible for people to do that for a long time since I think the first time I saw it was like March of 1984 on HUD ones, and so it's been there that long, but a lot of people don't even know it exists. Okay?
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, Courtney, let's go with the next one.
Okay, Roy, I see you have your hand raised, so go ahead.
Yes, hi Joe, it's Roy in Wichita. How are you?
Hey, Roy, I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing great. Hey, I'd like to build a little bit off of one of her questions and talk a little bit because in talking to sellers, I do have situations where they are questioning, they're fearful of who I'm going to let into their house. You know, they're afraid you're just going to let somebody move into this house, they're going to tear up my house, then I'm going to be responsible for all the damages and you get all the money, that type of thing. And when they find out that I'm not advertising credit checks or anything like that, how do I help them with that?
Okay. All right. So the first thing is a lot of people go down the road of the monsters under the bed or in the closet.
Right.
All right. So you have to be careful not to let that curtail what it is you're trying to accomplish. So while you were talking about that, it reminded me of one seller that we put an option to purchase in place. I think that my wife looked at that house 2 or 3 times. She sat there, she sat down with them, and you know, they were comfortable. They were going to make a lot of money based on what we were about to do for them because we already knew what the buyers wanted to give us on this property, and so that told us what we were able to give to them. So we put the whole thing together, and as soon as my signs went out, within a week, they called us and wanted to cancel the agreement because we said the terms on the sign. Okay, so that happened about, I want to say, between 3 and 4 years ago, and right where my office is, right where I'm sitting right this second, they're probably about maybe 2 miles from me, maybe 3 miles, and they're about a half a mile from my mother-in-law's house. And so we've gone by that house a million times just because of family get-togethers and all that. And they played with trying to sell that house themselves for probably almost 2 years. I have no idea if they sold it or if they rented it out or if they just gave up and they're still living in it. But that one property, they were one of those type of people that you're referring to. In all those years, all the different deals I've done, one. So I just want you to think about that right off the bat. Now the next thing is that if you're making an agreement to purchase this property, or even if you're just leasing it with the right to sublease it until you can satisfy what the seller wants with your end buyer. Doesn't matter in whatever way, you should be signing in writing that you're taking over the responsibility of the maintenance and upkeep of this property. So that's your word in writing, legally closed with either a title agent, some sort of a closing agent, an attorney, what have you, saying that you're taking care, you're responsible for the property no matter what happens to it. So if a person still doesn't want to do that from there, it's not low-hanging fruit, move on. So I like to make this, put this picture in your mind. If I go into this orange tree orchard, and I take an extension ladder and I lean it against trees that have oranges that I can pick from the standing on the ground, reach up and pick. But I lean this extension ladder up against the tree. I climb all the way up it, and it's kind of wiggling, and I'm up on the top of that tree, and then I see something a little bit over, 3 trees over. So then I take and I grab a walkboard and I lift it up and I put it on top of the tree I'm standing on and lean it over towards another tree, and then I'm trying to kind of shimmy away or walk over and try to keep my balance to go over there and grab an orange off of that one tree or should I just been grabbing the oranges that I can reach from the ground, reaching up? So my point is, it's not low-hanging fruit, and I'm not trying to be facetious or ridiculous. I just want you to realize that there's people that don't want to deal with you. There's people that they are scared to death of their own shadow, and anything that's a little bit abnormal, they can find something that, or out of the usual, they can find something that's some horror story happened out there online. So the bottom line is that when you run into the ones that are that difficult, just plant the seed with them. Here's what I can do for you. You haven't burned a bridge with me. I understand your concerns. We handle this all the time. This is what our business model is. If there's anything wrong with the property, we're taking care of it because it's the asset that makes it possible for me to make money off of if it's in good shape. If it's tore up, I can't make any money off of it. So I need to keep it in good shape and move on from there and let them know that if you can help them, you certainly will. They can call you later on if they haven't had any luck trying something different. What I really like, and I'm sorry to drag on so much with this, but what I really like is for them to try other things first and realize that I'm the best thing since sliced bread. And so then once they know that, they're eating out of my hand and I'm solving their problem, taking care of the property and doing what needs to be done, which is just making their payment for them if it's just that alone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does. I guess I was under, maybe I'm in your Jumpstart, maybe I had a fundamental misunderstanding of, I thought that the seller is still responsible for major repairs.
No. The seller is not responsible. The end buyer is. Okay? But I'm taking this over from the seller, and so then I'm enforcing that my end buyer is taking care of this property. So I'm not actually the one physically taking care of it. My end buyer is. It's the responsibility and the requirements I put on my end buyer. So the seller's not responsible. I am, and that gives me the desire to make my end buyer take care of the property.
Okay, and that includes even major like AC and roof and things of that nature?
Yeah, now if somebody moves into the property and they're in there for, a few days and they've checked everything out and they said, hey, the AC doesn't work. Well, it worked when we checked it out. It doesn't work now. Now it's a decision you have to make. Let's say they put $30,000 down. Can you afford to go have an $800 repair of that AC unit? Can you afford to replace one of the pieces in it that might cost you $2,000, $3,000? The answer is yes, you can, but you're fixing a property that they have said that they're taking over. So do you want them talking good about you? Can you take some of the 30 and fix that and have them talking great about you? You're continuing to become that local hero that now they're sending you more and more of their friends that want to buy, through you also. Or do you want to play hardball with them and say, look, it's going to cost $800. If you kick in $4, I'll kick in $4, or something like that. It's up to you. There's also the times where you can go, okay, you found something that's wrong. It's going to cost $800 to fix. I would rather you take care of it yourself, and I'll take $1,600 off of the back end of this. So you're not paying anything up front. They're taking care of it, but you're dropping the price by $1,600, which is off the back end. So you can play it that direction too. But as far as the seller goes, you're taking over the responsibility of that house. You don't want the seller to ever have to even think about it again.
And then, so that's on a deal that I stay in the middle of, but what about a deal where there's not enough meat in the deal for me to stay in the middle of, and I'm just basically finding an end buyer?
Right. So if you've assigned your contract, then that's where you have the conversation with the seller. Okay, now look, I'm assigning this to this end buyer here, and if you'll notice, there's a form in there that the seller signs saying that they know that you're no longer buying it, that it's your end buyer buying it. So let's just call it Joe the sod layer is buying this house now instead of Joe the investor. So they've signed that saying that they understand that it's not me anymore. That's the end buyer. That end buyer is buying it directly for them. But my conversation always also goes to this depth with the seller. Listen, if you have any issues, if you get the property back, or you need me to step in and do something else with the property, just give me a holler. And so,
okay.
Do I want them to do that? Absolutely, because what happens? I might find another end buyer where there is plenty of reason for me to stay in the game, or at worst case, I'm going to end up with another assignment fee out of it.
Right, and so that's the point where you have the conversation with the seller and say, hey, if you have any problems, give me a call and we'll just,
I'll get you another
redo
buyer.
this. Right,
Yep.
right,
Yep.
exactly. Okay, that's
Okay.
the point I was, yep, all right, we're good.
Okay. All right. Next question, Courtney.
Okay. Steve asked, I live in Fresno, California, and I'm a wholesaler. What kind of list should I use for direct mail to find motivated sellers? And what should I be mailing, a postcard or a letter? And how often and how many times should I mail to the one list before buying a new one?
Okay. I have to ask the question for Steve. Is he only looking to wholesale? That's all he wants to do, find motivated sellers to just wholesale?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Then, Steve, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble right there with that one, because if you're trying to sell properties, now I'm making an assumption that you're not a realtor. If you're a realtor, then everything's out the window, what I just said. But if you're an investor and you're not putting a contract on the house, you can't just find properties for sale and then offer it up to other buyers, because you're acting as a realtor without a real estate license. So I'm making an assumption that that might be what you're attempting to do. So you have to be careful of that one. You would talk to an investor-friendly attorney to make sure that you're doing everything that you should be to comply with that. Now, let's go ahead and still try to answer the question anyway. So when I'm looking for motivated sellers, there's many different lists that you can go after. One list that I like is a notice of default. If your state allows that, certain states will allow that and other states won't. So if you're looking for a notice of default, I like to find a 30, 60, or 90-day notice of default, NOD. That means that they've missed a payment. If it's a 90-day NOD, that means they've missed 3 payments within a certain period of time, which qualifies them as a 90-day NOD. If it doesn't have to be consecutive now, it can be they missed March, they missed June, they missed February. So, but that's the number one list for me. That's usually an indicator there. Probably about 7% of the time, those people would love to get that payment, that house off their back, and so that's the first list I go after. Depending on the area, if it's a retirement area, or if it's an area that people like to, a vacation area, then I don't go with the out-of-town, out-of-state list. But if it's not a major vacation retirement area, then I like to go with the out-of-town, out-of-state list. So there's 2 directions for you to go on that one, Steve. All right, so let's go into the question that I asked, and then we'll come back to your questions again. All right, so I asked this question: what is better for you as an investor, doing a lease purchase or doing seller financing? And then I asked why. So I wanted you to explain why. Well, some people answered publicly, and then there was a lot of things that happened privately with this one. So the first thing is that I purposely worded this question to stimulate some thought on your side of it, but a question, there's a really important question you should have asked me immediately before trying to answer the question. So here's what the question should have been asked to me when I asked my question. Are you talking about when I'm buying, or are you talking about when I'm selling as the investor? Should I structure it as a lease purchase when I'm buying, seller financing when I'm buying, or should I which way is better, or which way do I think is better, when I'm buying or selling? Okay. All right. So for this point right here, I wanted to talk about selling, because structuring it when I'm buying is really going to be more up to the seller than it is up to me. But when I'm selling, it's always going to be up to me first. I will say a good 95% of the time it's going to be up to me. All right. So the first thing I want to show you is I'm going to use one of my deals that we just got done putting the new end buyer in place. I think they went in place. Gosh, Courtney, you just talked to them on the phone yesterday or the day before. They're the ones that said they called with the good news and all. I think they went into this house last weekend. So when I show you this whole thing, I'm going to prove the point that does the purchase price really matter all that much, that the seller, when the seller's selling it to me and I'm buying it, does that purchase price matter? And so I'm going to let you think about that and decide on the answer after you've seen the rest of this. Okay, so here's a property that we just put another end buyer in place. It's worth about $140,000. It cost me $10, and the financial gain thus far is over $49,000, and I make an extra $236 a month off of it. Okay. For the last 8 years, end buyers have paid for this house for me. Hey, Courtney, I got to move this little thing on my screen here. I'm thinking that's not going to hurt. Yeah. Okay. I'm good. All right. So for the last 8 years, end buyers have paid for this house for me. All right. Now, what do I mean by that? So I still owe on this existing loan $109,965. Wait a minute, Joe. You said the cost was $10. That's all it's cost me is $10. I've put no more money into that house at all when I acquired this property. It was just $10. There's 20 years left on the existing mortgage. It matures in August of 2036. The sales price to my new end buyer is $139,500. They just went in this past weekend. All right. How many end buyers have I put in the house? My guess is, I think probably 4. 3 or 4. So I'm going to go with 4. All right. So what I owe on this property goes down every month. Do I pay any of it? Nope, not one dime comes out of my pocket to pay this. What they owe me stays the same, and that's because they're a lease purchase end buyer. All right, until they pay enough to convert the deed. Now, if they pay enough to convert the deed, then I'm going to transfer this into a closing, which is going to be a subject to closing, and then a seller carryback second on it for in this particular example. Then they start with 30 years owed. Now, how many years do I owe still? 20 years right now. So they're going in right this minute. I still owe 20 years on this house. They're going in at day one, and day one stays at day one until they've paid enough down for me to convert the deed. So their 30 years starts after they've accomplished what I've put in place for them to convert the deed. All right. So the mighty combo wins, and I like payments with that. So instead of fries, I like the payments with that. That's me and what I like, the lease purchase and the combination seller financing. Now let's go a little bit deeper into this. All right. So one of the things I want to tell you about this is that this is not so unique. They said when they contacted us, the end buyers that went in place, they said that they're able to pay $800 a month and they can pay $5,000 down. But I want you to remember something. They are actually paying, Courtney, I think we're missing a couple slides here. They're actually paying $1,400 a month and they're paying $12,000 down. Let me just go backwards here. Okay. All right. So somehow a couple of slides dropped off, but it's okay. Let me just tell you the rest of the situation here. So the end buyers have paid me, they're paying me $12,000 down and $1,400 per month. This house cost me, it's $1,164, I believe it is. So my profit every month is $236. I have received $49,000 off of this deal, but I want you to keep this really right in front of your face here, right in your mind. I have 20 years left and $109,000 is owed. They owe me $139,000, but they haven't finished doing what's required for me to convert the deed into their name. So this will stay in a lease purchase for a while until they've paid enough down, or you can set it up this way. If you want to make sure that they've paid 12 payments in a row, 12 monthly payments in a row, on time or early every month, if they've accomplished that, then you will happily convert the deed into their name. So you've kind of established a history with them of feeling comfortable that they're going to make the payment on time. So you can set it up that way and not really tie it to a dollar figure. But the bottom line is, let's say that that's, well, let's just say it's 3 years from now. So 3 years from now, they've continued paying me. I put $236 in my pocket, and I pay down on the loan that I'm going to be responsible for with their money. Now there's 17 years left that I owe on it, and then day one has started for them now because they've paid enough down for me to convert the deed. So now they start at 30 years. So that means for the next 17 years, they're going to be paying me, and then I'm going to be paying down on this loan. But something that's even more important than that is if you take and pull up an amortization schedule and you look at how much interest is being charged in the beginning versus towards the end, you'll see that they're paying me way more in interest, and I'm paying way less in interest on a debt that I've taken over. Now, once it converts, they're still responsible to me for 30 years on a seller-financed carryback second and a subject to purchase, but they're also that's also put on a wrap. So I can make the monthly payments that same payment for the full 30 years, or I can shorten it to whatever time it needs to be. It could be like I just did one on Tuesday of this week. That one there was a 9-year. So we're only making, I think we made like $58,000 off that one. But bottom line is, if I spend $10 and I make $58,000, am I okay? If I spend $10 on this one, so far I've made $49,000. How long will that end buyer be in place before they convert the deed? I've got some in place that have been in place for 6, 7, 8 years, and they still haven't accomplished what it was that I was looking for them to do. So they're still in a lease purchase until they accomplish what I wanted them to do to convert the deed. Then the clock starts on the financing that I put in place. Many of them don't go down that road. They start down that road and then they decide not to continue down it, and they'd rather just keep leasing. I'm not going to argue with them about it because I like payments. I've set it up for them to do it the other way, but they've chosen not to, not me. Okay, so now let's go back to this part right here. So what I owe goes down every month. Am I paying that down every month? Nope. They are, through me. What they owe stays the same until they pay enough to convert the deed. Then they start with 30 years, and it could be a 12-year loan. I don't know, but the bottom line is it's going to be longer than and more than what I owe on the property, so I'm always going to be making a profit. And the longer I hold on to the property, the more likely it is that they're going to change their mind, want a bigger house, a smaller house, a different school district, a job opportunity in a different state, whatever the case may be. And a lot of times if people just hand me the house back, instead of trying to sell it themselves, they would rather just hand it back to me and let me take care of it and then move on without being tied down. So there's a lot of benefit to an end buyer who isn't forced to continue dealing with that house if they all of a sudden, are in Georgia and get a job opportunity in Washington State, and their whole life, their family's life, their employment, all that stuff gets put on hold, or the family splits up and the worker goes to the new job in another state and the family stays in the house until it sells. Well, they don't have to do any of that with us. They merely can just, okay, we're moving out this month, and we want you to just have the house back, and we don't have to worry about it anymore. And so they move on, and of course, what do? I put another end buyer in place with another down payment, and the clock starts all over again. Okay, so that's how you make money off of real estate. That's how you put retirement plans in place for yourself. Can I leave it always just in a lease option until they've completely paid off this house. You know, I don't have to convert it to seller financing ever. I can just leave it at where they're just totally leasing it from me the entire time. All right, now in Texas, you can't do a lease option, but you can set it up with a seller financing deal. And then there's the people that say, but Dodd-Frank says that you can only do X number of those in, you know, because of what Dodd-Frank says. Each state created their own number of seller finance deals you can do. Well, that's true without a loan originator involved. But if you have a loan originator involved, stamped off on it, then it doesn't count against you. In addition to that, when you're buying with seller financing, none of those count against you. They count against the seller that's selling it, not you. So if you're selling it with seller financing, they count against you. If you're buying it with seller financing, that counts against the person that you're buying it from, not you. Okay? All right, so Courtney, let's go back into questions, and let's see who's got any more questions. Courtney, you there?
Yeah, one sec. We got
Okay.
a bunch. I'm just trying to open
A bunch
them
of
all
questions?
up. Yeah. Okay, so Sean asked.
I thought I told everybody that I had crystals for lunch and I don't have any energy to answer all these questions. Anyway, go ahead.
Sean asked, does the Jumpstart program you offer have the marketing plan, blueprint, and both a buyer's list and blueprint to build both a buyer's list and seller's list?
Yes. Now, as far as a blueprint goes, I'm not an information marketing company, Sean. I'm not one of these kind of guys that build this beautiful package of training of crap that doesn't work. What I do is I show you what I do in my real estate investing business. This is what I do, and you can mimic what it is that I do in your town. Many of my students do it across the nation, in New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Mexico, Europe. I've got students I think in every one of the 50 states. I might be wrong on that. There might be 48 or so that I have students in, and I didn't think about it straight. But this works everywhere anybody wants to live, and houses already exist. If houses don't exist, then there's a lot of things that I do like that also, but it's a little bit different than what's in Jumpstart. So there's a little bit more entailed that you've got to, you know, jump into, a little bit more risk that you got to take and all that kind of stuff. But if there's houses in the town that you want to work in and there's people that want to live there, then Jumpstart works. Just follow what it is that I'm doing. If you're looking for this beautifully packaged program that's, you know, got, you know, spreadsheets and all this kind of stuff, we don't waste all the time putting all that together. Just focus on what it is that I do, focus on what it is that I teach, focus on messages that I put out there that attracts buyers to me and attracts sellers to me. And then the other message that I go out there with is professionals who have lists already and want to connect with me. All different walks of life would like to put their list in front of me for free so that I can work with them so that their business can continue to make money off of that. Okay? Next question.
Okay, Nietzsche asked, do you buy, or is there a way to look up the 90-day NOD?
You can research it yourself, but I like to buy the list because I like my list to be scrubbed clean. I don't, you know, you can make the mistake of going out there online and buying a list, and yes, it's going to be a list of 90-day NOD, but it might be a list of 90-day NOD from 14 years ago. So you have to be careful of all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of, I mean, we all know that there's some scams and gimmicks and all that kind of stuff out there. So you got to kind of be careful. So you're looking for a reputable list broker that scrubs their list and is adamant about making sure that they give you the best they possibly can so that you will continue to buy lists from them. That's what you're looking for. But that one-off thing and that free thing, in that case, you really do get what you pay for, and it's a roll of the dice. It would probably be easier if you could get a hold of or safer if you could get a hold of an old phone book and just go through the phone book and send letters to names in the phone book. I'm not telling you to do that. I don't think that's a sensible thing to do, but it probably wouldn't be any better than that if you're just buying it or getting it randomly for free. So that's the way I see that. Next question.
Okay, he also asked if it is a list, any good list brokers for this?
Yeah, I'm trying out a new one right now, and I don't want to reveal their name yet. I'm almost ready to reveal them, but I just got a couple more checks and balances on them. So I just got done. We bought. Let's see. We bought 8. Let's see. 2, 4. We bought 6 lists from them, and I'm testing it out. And so as soon as I'm sure that they really are what they say they are, and everything is hunky-dory, then I'll be happy to share that name with you. But until then, I don't want to promote something that I'm not positive is well worth it for you. Okay, next question.
Okay. Marilyn has a question, so.
Okay, is there anyone else? Marilyn asked a bunch. I want to get to hers, but is there anyone else sitting there that hasn't had a chance to ask a question yet?
Yes.
Okay, let's get that first.
This one's a long one. So Jim asked, a widowed homeowner is going into a nursing home. The house is worth $126,000, but needs a lot of work. She's going to be on Medicaid, and I believe any money she gets from the sale of the house is going to the government rather than to her family. Is there a way for me to buy this house for less than $126,000? I'd like to buy this house and rehab it and then sell it to her nephew or someone else once it's beautiful again. Can I buy this house for like $10,000 since she's not getting the money anyway? Trying to create a win-win for the nephew and myself. Have you ever bought properties from people going into nursing homes?
Yes. And so here's the thing. The first thing that, I'm always very, very careful in this area. You got to be sure that the person that's making the decisions is of sound mind. Now, just because a person's going into a nursing home doesn't mean they're not of sound mind, and I understand that. But the bottom line is, if there is someone who's set up as the guardian to kind of protect the interest of the individual who's, let's just say, going into the nursing home, then I like to deal with both of them at the same time. Now, sometimes the person that's going in the nursing home, they don't want that person involved anymore because it just confuses and messes them up. So looking for who the guardian is, looking for that. And in today's time, instead of using, and we're going to talk if this person was to die, the terms of executor or executrix, male versus female, is not used as much anymore. It's more personal representative. So I'm looking to see who the personal representative is and who the guardian is of the estate, the affairs of this individual. So I'm looking for that first. Now, let's just assume that we're now talking to the people who have the control, whether it's the individual that owns it and they're still of sound mind, they just need help because they, have leg issues or back issues or what have you. Then, if it's going to be based on what they will agree to. They can sell the house for what they want to sell it for before they get into some sort of a nursing home agreement. Once they get into an agreement with some sort of an agency, now you have this whole world where we need attorneys to get involved to protect interests and all that. But typically, I've seen this where a lot of times the person going into the home will sign their house over to someone else. They can literally just sign it over to someone else. Typically, it's not an investor, not a stranger. It's a family member, whoever it is that's handling their affairs, that's signed over to them. So now the person that's going into the nursing home no longer has the asset. It doesn't belong to them. So now that asset is not controlled at all by the government. Now, everything I just said you need to talk to an attorney about that to make sure that you're doing everything that's legal and ethical, proper in that particular state, wherever that's happening at. Once the person has control of the property that's not in the nursing home, then whatever the seller makes an agreement with you on is perfectly fine. Now, if you're going to try to rehab it, now you're going to spend money buying it, then you're going to spend money remodeling it, and then you're going to hope that, let's just say it's the nephew can get qualified for a loan. So I'd be putting the nephew through that first. I'd be looking for the nephew to get qualified first. And you know, there's a lot of different ways that you can do that, a lot of different ways to control it. There's so many moving parts in that it's really hard to say exactly what way I would go until I know who it is that actually owns the home, who it is that has the rights to sell it, who it is that has the rights, you know, frame of mind to be able to negotiate out this deal. Then we can sit there and structure the whole thing out. But without knowing all that, it's really difficult to get any deeper into an answer on that one. Okay? All right, next question.
Okay. Let's see. Sean has a question, so go ahead, Sean. You need to unmute yourself, though.
Can you hear me okay?
Just, can you turn up your volume a little bit? Okay. You must be...
Yeah.
Are you using your computer without a headset?
No, it's actually, I'm on the road. I'm using my cell phone.
Okay. All right. I'm hearing myself talking there. Try to turn your volume down just a little bit.
Is that better?
Okay, let's see. I still hear myself. Let's just go for it, Sean.
All right, sounds good. All right, here's a scenario on what to do. Let's say you get a seller, they're 3 months behind on the mortgage. How? 2 questions, Joe. When do you let them know or secure with them that I'm going to start taking the payments over? And then how do you make up? Where does the money come from to make up for the 3 months that they're in the rears?
Okay, and then I'm going to give you a little deeper answer that you have to be aware of. All right. So let's do this first thing, Sean. Go ahead and mute yourself so that I don't hear myself anymore. Okay.
He muted himself.
All right, good. All right, what was happening, Sean, was every time I talked, I'd hear myself, and I get sick of hearing myself talk, so I don't want to hear me. Anyway, so the first thing is, let's just put a dollar figure on this. Let's just assume that the payments are $1,500 a month, and they're 3 months behind, and that counts late fees. So there's $4,500 in back payments with late fees and everything owed to the bank. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I am not taking over this house without my market speaking. I am not committing to that property until I know what my buyers are willing to do on it and my buyers have paid me up front. So option to purchase goes in place. Mr. Seller, as soon as I put a satisfactory end buyer in place, then I'm going to take over your property, your back payments, your monthly payments, and it's contingent upon me finding a satisfactory end buyer. Not you, but me, talking about me, the investor. Okay, so that solves the whole problem of when am I going to start making the payments and when am I going to catch up this loan? When I find a satisfactory end buyer. There's the answer to that part. The next part is, where does the money come from? So let's say that I'm looking at my end buyers, and let's say that the actual true house payment is $1,300 a month. We added $200 every month for late fees and all that kind of stuff, just to create some real numbers with this. So I've got a $1,300 a month debt I've got it covered. So my end buyer is going to be paying me at a minimum of $1,600 a month. I want that end buyer set up so I can get at least $300 positive cash flow out of that house every month. $1,300 is going to the bank. $300 is going into my pocket, and now we got to talk about the down payment. So I'm looking for what is it going to take to catch this loan up And then if they renege on the deal down the road, do I have enough money to take care of, if they decided to leave me with a $2,000 fix the carpet bill or a $4,000 fix the carpet and paint the house bill. Okay, so the down payment I would need to cover just the bank would be $4,500 to catch up the bank loan. Then the anything above that is going to be for helping me in the event that they stop making payments or don't take care of the house and move out and leave the house messed up. So in a case like that, I'm looking for somewhere in my neighborhood now, somewhere between $6,000 and $15,000 down would be okay with me. Now, I'm not advertising that. If somebody wants to give me $25,000, I say I'll take 15, then I'm not getting 25, I'm getting 15. So, but the bottom line is that's what I'm looking for at a minimum to get. I'm sorry, I said 6. I meant 8,000. So it's somewhere between 8,000 and 15,000 down to make me comfortable letting them go in at $1,600 a month. Now, that's not a great deal, but that's an okay deal for somebody getting started. So that's where that happens. Now, one of the things that this is going to go a little bit deeper here. I just want you all to pay attention to this. Let's say that the seller's 3 months behind, and it's $4,500 to catch it up. You have to be careful. Once you get to a certain dollar figure, you want an attorney involved in the bank agreeing to put that loan back in good standing again. That loan, once that loan is not in good standing anymore, once the bank won't accept payments anymore, you could pay that $4,500 and them still foreclose on the house. So you have to be careful of that. So that's when you need to have an attorney involved to make sure that these funds that we're sending you, Mr. Banker, you can have as long as you're putting the bank back in good standing again. Okay, so now remember, now you're doing this in conjunction with the seller. So this is from you through the seller to the lender, making sure that that loan is back in good standing so that they don't have the right to foreclose even though you paid the $4,500. All right, so there's the end of that one. All right, next question. Courtney,
sorry, I muted myself.
Okay.
Let's. Okay, Roy has another question.
Okay, let's go to Maryland's now, and then we'll jump back over to Roy. Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay, Marilyn, you're unmuted, so just unmute yourself, and then you can ask your question.
Hi, Mr. McNamee. How you doing?
Oh, this is Mr. Maryland this time, huh?
Yeah. We've been working with a guy. There's a lot of loans done in Central Florida where you have these investors come in and they do like a 12-month balloon, and then they try to flip it.
Yes.
And I've been noticing a lot of people, these investors, where they're not able to flip it, and they're getting into the sixth to 8th month, getting close to that 12th month where it's going to balloon.
Right.
And so one of the properties that we're showing, we're getting good offers, but he wants his full boat of the entire amount, which is not going to happen. I mean, we've had probably 25 people look at the property, maybe more, and they're not even coming close to what he wants. What would you suggest?
Okay, so what I need to know is you're talking about total purchase price. Give me a real number on just one.
He wants $389 for it. It's worth about $285.
Okay.
He owes somewhere around $320 on it.
Okay.
And so my thought process was, hey, he's going to get in trouble. Give me the number to your private investor. We can negotiate something. Maybe have our end buyer take over the payments. I mean, have us take over the payments, get an end buyer in there, and go that route on it, and we'll hold a second for ourselves. What would you suggest?
Okay, so you've got
like
so this note of $320 is coming due in 6 to 8 months.
It's coming due in 4.5 months, and he has to pay $2,300 a month.
Okay, so in 4.5 months, the $320,000 is coming due.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we definitely don't want to buy that subject to because it's got such a short time frame. Property is only worth $2 something, so we're not going to go get somebody qualified. and we're probably not going to have anybody who's going to pay enough down and then borrow the rest to cover what the investor wants out of it. So this is a case where they're in hot water, you're not, and you getting involved in that, you would be jumping into the hot water with them. So you don't want to do that. But you said the absolutely right thing, and it's all about negotiations. Let me talk to the private or hard money lender. Let me see if I can't negotiate something out that makes it good for us. But what does the investor want at it? $320,000 right now?
Well, and come December, it'll balloon at $320,000. That's what he owes.
But if you were able to negotiate out, 5 years, does the investor still want the 320 right now?
That's what I was talking. That's what I actually spoke with him for about a half hour on the phone the other day, and I want to speak with him again. But we wanted to kind of get your advice before I go back to him.
Yeah, if he's looking to get the 320 now, it's not going to happen. I don't even want you to even think about being involved in that deal. But if you've got great offers, then you need to be going after properties just like that in that area. So that's where you would be marketing in that area. Your market is speaking to you and telling you, we want a house like that in that town. You just want to get a house with better terms. You don't want to get a house with 4.5 months ballooning at 320,000 terms. You don't want that. But the house right next door would probably work just fine for the people that are giving you offers. I'm being a little bit facetious on what I'm saying, but not really. You've got a buyer's list you're building, so now look for properties that are low-hanging fruit type terms on them with sellers, so that you can go ahead and put those end buyers into other properties. But these right here, unless you've got a private investor that wants to come in and take them out, but still, I wouldn't strongly suggest that unless you have a lot of people that are telling you that they would pay a much higher payment than what that's going to cost you on that house, getting your own private investor involved. Does that make sense?
Not happening. Yeah, it does complete sense.
Yeah, unfortunately, Florida is full of people who teach real estate that don't actually do this, and so they talk people into doing the craziest things, and it's full of these kinds of deals. It's just ridiculous, and so it really puts a lot of people into a major problem. Typically, two things that they'll do. The competition will teach people how to buy houses subject to, but not have a clue how to sell them. Or they'll talk people into going and find private money to buy houses cash and still not have a clue how to sell them. And so the bottom line is, you don't want to get involved in that part of the world, because those are huge mistakes. You want to take over property that you are not committed to. You want to market to your list. You want to find people who can pay you more than what the property costs, and not just one, but multiple offers on that same property, and then you take over that property. Now you have no risk. And you want it to be terms that are long-term terms, not short-term terms like 4.5 months. If you got 5 years or 10 years to deal with, and a lot of things you can do in that period of time, more than likely the people that you put in place can qualify to get it cashed out, and there's a good chance that it will increase in value, and they'll pay down enough on the debt through paying down through you on the debt to where it will appraise for what's now owed 5 years from now. Does that make sense?
Complete sense. Now, on a lease purchase agreement, this is one quick question. What would you recommend if I have a good buyer for a lease? 2 years, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years?
They always lease it from me 1 year at a time. But we always renew it. As long as they're doing what they said they were going to do, we renew it over and over again until they have done what it is we've asked them to do. Now, I just pointed out to you 8 years straight for this last deal that I just showed you. Do I care if they, pay this off? Do I want them to pay this off?
No.
No.
I understand.
No. Okay. All right. Okay, next question.
That's it for.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, Marilyn, I muted you.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you. I know that Joe sometimes complains that there's not enough questions. I think today he's been caught up
Yeah,
with us.
yeah. I shouldn't have ate. Today was a day I shouldn't have ate Crystal. I should have had some fruit and vegetables, right? But
Thank you all. I want to say thank you, and thanks, Courtney, for always being there and answering my calls every time I call.
you're welcome. You're welcome. All right. I answered
Okay,
for you,
Roy.
Courtney.
Roy, I see you have a question, so I've unmuted you, so go ahead. You're just going to need to unmute yourself.
Roy, I think she's saying that you're
Yep.
okay.
Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Okay, great. Sorry.
That's okay.
So yeah, this builds off that last deal that you went on the slides on. So how do you know, or is it subjective, what threshold to set to convert the deed for the buyer? So the buyer says, yep, I want to do this and I want to buy it. How do you know what to set that threshold at?
Okay. All right. So Roy, I'm going to tell you what many times people have been in my live events and they hear the same answer all the time, because they'll watch me do a live deal right in front of their face and they'll say, Joe, how'd you come up with that down payment? That's the amount that you wanted to convert that deed. Or how did you come up with that monthly payment or whatever? You know, how'd you come up with that purchase price? And Roy, a lot of times I just pull it out my shorts. Honestly, that is a God's honest truth. It's true. Anybody who's known me for a while has heard me say that 50 times. All right. Now let's get into a more sensible answer for someone who doesn't have the experience that I have. Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So the way that I would look at that, if I was someone who didn't have as much experience, didn't really know my market as well as I should to be able to just pull it out my shorts, then I would look at it from this perspective. Now, I don't want you to make this too complicated because sometimes, especially the engineering, the analytical type will make this very complicated, but it doesn't need to be. I look at, okay, on the average, what could they tear up in this house? Is this an expensive house? So the house that I used in this picture right here, it's not an expensive house. It's actually a modular home. It's not a mobile home. It's a prefab type house, kind of like the old Jim Walters type homes. All right, so there's nothing really expensive in there. It's basic carpet. The carpet in there is, I think it's about a 32-ounce carpet in there, which is not it's just maybe a builder's grade type carpet. There's a little bit of ceramic tile and a little bit of vinyl in there, but nothing expensive. There's no marble that's been imported from Italy. There's no gold-plated plumbing fixtures. There's no light fixtures that are $1,000 or more a piece and all that kind of stuff. So what can they really do to this house? On the average, you're looking at somewhere around $4,000 at worst case. If they went in there and screwed up walls and screwed up flooring, I'm looking at $4,000 to fix it. Now that's what the going rate is in my area for a house like that. So if I multiply that times 3 and I've got nothing else that I have to pay out there, like I forget who it was, someone had the house that was 3 months behind, that's something else I have to pay. So I've got to protect my investment, and then I've got to cover another expense that I have to take on just because I'm getting involved in this deal. So the expense that I'm taking on obviously is with my end buyer's money, not with my money. All right, but so that particular house, $12,000 is what I've decided is a fair amount of money to convert the deed. Now I've figured out worst case scenario, $4,000 multiplied it times 3, $12,000 to convert the deed. Well, how much do they have to put down? $5,000. They got 7 more to go. How many times do they come up with the rest of it? Out of all the buyers that are in all of my properties, probably about 20% of them do the rest of the deal. Most of them, they don't. And it's like, I remind them, I send them, different things along the way. I give them a little discount because they've been, kept in good standing, made their payments on time and all that. I'll give them a little bit of break on it all. And they don't follow through with the rest of it. And so when they don't, I don't want it to cost me. They're not my kids, and I wouldn't even do that for my kids. So the bottom line is that's how I kind of come up with what I want to convert that deed.
Got it. Okay,
All right.
great.
Now, if I am in a state that is very difficult to remove tenants, or it's difficult to foreclose on, so don't want to pick on anybody's home turf, but California is kind of one of those places that it can take you a little while to get someone out. So obviously, I want that number to be much higher. Even if the house isn't more expensive to fix, it's hard to find a house for $140,000 in California, but bottom line is paint and flooring and all is not that difficult and not that expensive, and you can find people to do it for a very reasonable price. However, California, they're more lenient towards the tenant than they are towards the landlord. And by the way, just a little note for everyone here to just kind of put this in the back of your head. It's a real good idea for you to go to your magistrate court in the area that you're going to be wanting to do your business in, and just go sit there. Go do it maybe once a week for a month. Just go and sit there and listen to the court cases and hear all the the disputes between the landlords and the tenants and all that stuff, and get a feel for which way does the judge lean. What's the judge's pet peeves? Get an idea for is this judge more landlord friendly and tired of people not making their payments, or is this judge more lenient towards, oh my gosh, they got to have a roof over their head and somebody has to pay? You have to just kind of see what that position is of that particular judge in the area that you're operating. So, okay, next question, Courtney.
I don't have any questions as of right now.
All right, that's good. I have to go real soon here, doing some private lessons for my instructor, teaching some of his special needs kids, so I've got to leave pretty soon anyway. Well, I hope that everybody got some good information out of this one. I know that if I was just getting started, I couldn't imagine getting training like this in the beginning of me really ramping up my real estate investing, which was many years ago. But being able to see more than what my parents and grandparents and their friends and all that were doing, and just to be able to have this kind of information. So we've opened this up to everyone for two different webinars in a row. I'm telling you now, that's not always going to be that way. We've done that just a couple times, just kind of give you a little sample, a little taste of what it's like to find out how it really is when you're really and truly trying to buy and sell real estate and do it without using your money, your credit, or a lender of any type, and more importantly, knowing how to have your properties sold before you commit to them. I'm not taking over the debt. I'm not paying the back payments of that one deal we just talked about a few minutes ago until my end buyer has handed me that money up front. Okay? So bottom line is, if you can handle it, get into our Jumpstart. There's the information right there on the screen. If you are listening to this as a recording, you can click on it. If it's live, which right now it's live, then you have to type that in. Or you can just call our office and talk to one of the staff and get yourself signed up. Okay, guys, this is Joe McNamee. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.